Hi, I am Sarah Runyons, and this is Hyperlocal in Huntsville, Alabama. And today I am interviewing a young entrepreneur here who is a native of Huntsville, Alabama, Jessie Tillman. She is a physical therapist and just very accomplished already as a relatively new PT in pediatric physical therapy. I'm so excited for you to hear about her story and about a product that she is bringing to the market that is going to help and is already helping a lot of children. So please stick around to hear her story and all about this product that helps kids who are walking on their toes. If you know of anyone like that, then bring them in to listen or share this with them, and you may make a connection that will be life changing for you and your friends or family. Hi, Jessie.
Hey,
Thanks for joining me today.
of course. I'm so excited to get to talk with you and share my product with everyone.
Well, I am as well, and I just can't wait to hear you share about it because I know you do a great job explaining all about this. So let's just start from the beginning. And if you will, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So, I am a pediatric physical therapist, like you mentioned, and I graduated from Auburn University and got my PT degree at South Alabama in Mobile. And I did a residency, clinical, and that was at Children's of Alabama in Birmingham. And that's where I really fell in love with pediatrics and working with kids. So I started working in 2019, and I've been a pediatric PT for about 5 years now. And it has just been the most rewarding job in the world. So I'm very grateful to have done that and gotten that experience there. And so I now work in a number of different settings. I've worked in the clinic, the hospital, school system, early intervention, working in people's houses. And it is just so cool to be able to, impact a child's prognosis that will affect them for the rest of their life. And it was in my job that I came up with my product, No Tiptoe, which, as you mentioned, is for kids that walk on their toes. And so a lot of people don't realize that it is extremely common. Over 33% of all kids walk on their toes at some point. And so it is a huge issue in pediatric PT. And this is kind of how I came about with my idea for my product, No Tiptoe.
That's great. Just, I have to tell our audience that I've known you for a long time. And I recall that when you graduated as a physical therapist, that initially you were set on doing pediatric physical therapy. And that's not an easy area of PT to break into. You really have to be a specialist working with children, don't you? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
thinking you do.
Yes.
And so it's not an easy one to get into, but I recall your determination and your vision for what you wanted to do. And that is, and you stuck with it.
Hmm.
You weren't willing to compromise on what you wanted to do.
Hmm.
And now, 5 years later, that has come to fruition. And so that is so exciting. So let's continue with learning more about this. So you told us a little bit about your business and what inspired you to start it. And tell us some more details. I want you to flesh that out a little bit more, like in a practical way. What are some things that you did, steps you took to help these little ones take some steps
Yeah.
correctly?
So, like I mentioned, I noticed very early on that toe walking was a huge percent of the population, even that I treated through my job. And so I looked into what the current interventions are for toe walking, and these include really just invasive and traumatic interventions such as serial casting and orthotics on both legs, and this can be done for weeks to months. So it
Now,
lasts
when
a
you say
long
serial
time.
casting, can you describe that for our audience? Like, what is serial casting?
Yeah, so it is a little bit more flexible and dynamic than the cast that you may use when you break your leg or your arm, but it is about the same material, and it is used to help these kids to not be able to go on their toes. So the cast and the orthotics are used with hard plastic. So basically, the idea is here that you literally are not able to move your ankles in a way that you'd be able to go on your toes. So as you can imagine, that's extremely limiting in their
Mhm.
mobility, their activity levels. It's just a very, and of course, one of the main things that parents hate about it is that now my child looks extremely different from the other kids. And so
Mhm.
it's hard for them to, be active. It's difficult for them to be confident. It's
Mhm.
just a huge impediment for them to be able to move around and play like they should. And so those are some of the interventions that I've seen several of my own patients go through. Some of the more traumatic interventions include Botox to deaden the calf muscle. So they'll get injections into their calf so that they can't fire the muscle to go up on your toes, and even surgery to cut the Achilles tendon. And so, um, I'm sure that you can imagine that no kid wants to go through surgery or, even getting poked with a needle. These are just not ideal for children, and the parents don't want it either. And the worst part about all of that is that after all of that, it is actually pretty common for kids to go back to toe walking after all of that. So the recurrence rate is very high.
So,
Um,
Jesse, you're telling me that that is the current or has been the current protocol for treating toe walking.
Yes, that is the current protocol, along
Wow.
with, of course, physical therapy.
Mhm.
But, a lot of these kids can only afford to go to physical therapy once a week for, 30 minutes or an hour. And so the rest of the time they're walking on their toes, and it's just not enough for them to break this habit that they've been doing, for several years, a lot of them.
What is the age range that you would say is most common for the children that are doing the toe walking?
So, toe walking can start as early as even before they actually take their first steps. A lot of babies will start standing on their toes when they first start weight bearing, all the way up to adults. I actually have had a lot of
Wow.
adults order my product. So,
Wow.
it can be something that spans through the entire range of life. I would say the most common age is probably around 2 to 8.
Mhm.
And there's, of course, a lot of different reasons for toe walking. So there can be sensory issues. A lot of kids that are autistic tend to toe
Mhm.
walk, or it can be what we call idiopathic, which means that there's not a reason for it. It just happened on its own.
Okay. Wow.
These were the reasons why I wanted to create a product that is not only more effective than these, but also less traumatic and less invasive so that these kids don't have to go through these, I would say, medieval interventions, and just be able to get back on track and get, to where they are able to play like the other kids and break this habit early on before the damage starts.
Right. And we are going to get into talking about your product more. Where did your invention come from?
So after seeing all of these, treatments, I just thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. And so I think because my parents are engineers and just my innovative mind,
Mhm.
I really love the part of physical therapy that allows you to be creative with your
Mhm.
interventions. I don't like to stay in a box. I really like to think outside of the box.
Mhm.
And so I started kind of playing with different materials that could be used, things that maybe could prompt a child to get off their toes. I kind of looked into the sensory aspect, like we talked about before, things that can cause these kids to want to walk on their toes. So, a little bit more anatomy wise, kids have receptors in the ball of their foot. So, they really like the way it feels when they go up on their toes and they get that impact on the ball of their foot. And so, I thought, what's a way that I can give them that sensation of walking on their toes without going on their toes? This would not only help the idiopathic toe walkers, but especially the sensory toe walkers, and also it provides kind of a tactile cue to just get off the toes. So I ended up coming up with something that, and if you look into my product, you'll see it basically is an insert that goes right on the ball of the foot. And it helps to prompt these kids to get off their toes and gives them that input that they're looking at for the through the ball of the foot.
Wow. This is just truly remarkable to me, Jessie, that you created this product. It's not invasive at all, in my
Mhm.
opinion. I
Yeah.
mean, and going from what, as you described, like medieval
Mhm.
torture, basically for a
Yeah.
child, to something that's just an insert that goes in your shoe. You have that ability to think like an engineer because you have engineering parents, both of them, and and then you have an entrepreneurial mindset. You really do, because as I was saying before, you had a vision for being in this particular field, and you were willing to do what it took to get through the initial threshold to get into it. And even just getting a PT doctorate, takes time and perseverance and dedication. And so I think it all created a perfect storm, not a bad storm, but a good storm, that driving out these horrible practices and bringing to light something that's great, something that is new, and something that is wonderful. And so that is just awesome. Um, would you share like a memorable success story, or, and I know I've already kind of hinted on some challenging situations, but maybe something that hasn't been mentioned that you've overcome in your career and what you learned from it.
Yeah, so one of my first patients that I had worked with that I really remember being just such an amazing experience was a little girl who her and her parents were told that she would never be able to walk because of her diagnosis. And I work with a lot of kids that have very medically fragile diagnoses or even shortened life expectancies.
Mhm.
And this is pretty typical for where I work. And so, of course, the parents were devastated when they got this news. The girl was obviously just limited. She was put in a box. And so we worked together, and I started to notice that she was gaining strength in areas that I felt like typically for her diagnosis, it's difficult for them. And so we started doing more and more challenging exercises. And I remember we started doing a little bit of, weight bearing activities and eventually started to stand with support. And I remember after 2 long years of working with her, she was able to actually take her first steps independently. And of course, I'm crying, the parents are crying. It was just the most amazing experience because she's not only achieving a milestone that is, of course, a significant one, the walking first steps, it's a big one, but she was helping her prognosis, and she was doing something that was never supposed to be expected of her. And
Mhm.
so to change her trajectory and to be able to get her to perform something that she was never going to be able to do, it was just so awesome to say
Mhm.
she was not going to be able to do this, but now she can. And
Mhm.
the rest of her life is going to look completely different because of that. And I think that's really just what I love about my job in general
Mhm.
is the ability to just change these kids' lives for the better and just not even achieve milestones, but do what was impossible at one point to them. That was just an amazing moment. And
Mhm.
so I think that that was, a motivator at one point for me in my product was let's do something that no one else has done before and let's not get stuck in this box. Let's, think outside of the box and let's push the limits of what could be possible so that we don't stay in the same rut of the way things have been done. And I think that's why that story and others like that have helped lead me to where I am with my product because I learned that with PT, pretty much anything is possible. So it was a great motivator.
That's great, Jesse. Through this process, you have received some recognition. I mean, I think it's pretty phenomenal what you've done here. And it's neat to see the process and how it all kind of took place over time. So tell us a little bit about some of the recognition you've received. I know that you may or may not want to highlight that, but I think we should.
Okay. Yeah, so I actually was able to team up with UAH, which is our college here at Huntsville, and they were able to pair me with amazing people and companies that are able to help empower and support women like me. So it's the women in tech. They were the ones who were able to get me on the right path because as a PT, it's hard to get started in business. They're
Hmm.
just two different,
Very much. Yeah.
careers. And so they were able to really help me say, no, you've got a great idea, and we're going to help you get on track and get this thing out there into the world. And so I'm very grateful for them, the women in tech at UAH. UC is what it's called at UAH as well. They were able to pair me with the people who made my website and who the 3D printing company that helped me to actually create my product. And I've also been able to be sponsored in my alma mater's magazine, Auburn's magazine, the
Plainsman.
Auburn Plainsman.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was really amazing to
Hmm.
get to do an interview for them, and it's kind of a full circle moment. And
Hmm.
then I've also been able to get into a lot of PT clinics around the country. I'm being used in almost all the states, which is awesome, but also am starting to be sold internationally. So New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Mexico. It's been really, really cool to just see this need and know that I'm kind of affirmed that yes, this is an issue that people want a solution for, and to be able to provide that has just been amazing.
That is truly amazing. And you also won a scholarship. Did you mention that?
Yes, through the Women in Tech
Okay.
Fund,
Okay.
they were able to give me a scholarship that
Okay.
helped me to jumpstart my company and really get me on my feet because as a new grad PT,
Mhm.
I just again I wasn't sure how to navigate the business world, and so they were
Mhm.
able to kind of give me the resources and the companies to work with to get me off my feet.
And that's so true. It's good that you mentioned that the women in tech at UAH because there we do have a lot of tech people in Huntsville,
Mhm.
and it's a whole different mindset, isn't it? When you're, I mean, we have a lot of engineers. You're a physical therapist, but we have so many people that they're so good at those details, and but they're not thinking about how do I market this? How do I get this out? Like I know I've got a great product, but who's going to buy it,
Right.
how are they going to find out about it, and all of and I'm sure you've it's been a whole education in itself just learning how to go into business.
Oh yeah.
So that is so good, and I'm so thankful and so glad that you found these organizations here locally, which is something great for business owners to know about, and that's what I do here on this show is I want to highlight and feature business owners because I know that it is important for them to get their message out to the community and to the world. And so we're so thankful. I'm thankful to be able to feature you today. Is there anything else you can think of that we didn't really touch on before we wrap it up?
I think that one of the things with my product that I love for parents and potential patients, people who use my product to know, is the impact that toe walking can have. So this
Okay.
is something that a lot of people think, oh, they walk on their toes, they'll grow out of it. And there's been a lot of education that I've had to do as a PT. So, of course, like I think I've already mentioned it, but this can cause, decreased activity levels, balance, coordination. It can lead to deformed bones, even. So, that pressure on the balls of the feet when you're young, your bones are not fully formed yet. So, that can impact you for the rest of your life. Stretched ligaments,
Mhm.
and of course, lasting foot pain and surgeries down the road. So, of course, there are cases where kids grow out of toe walking after a few months. There's cases where kids do it for years into their adult life. So, it's not always the end of the world, but it is something that you want to address. And not to mention, again, like we said before, kids looking different, and just
Mhm.
the confidence aspect of it all, the social aspect. So there's a lot of different facets and reasons why it's important to address toe walking. And I think one of the reasons why doctors haven't maybe addressed it as quickly is because they know that the interventions that are available are extremely um, invasive. And so
Mhm.
they might say, well, there's not a better option. So we'll get to that bridge when we cross it. it's just so important to address early. And I think it's easy to do with my product because you can pop this inside their shoe and it helps immediately. And so
Yeah.
I just love to, kind of put that out there and re-educate parents and say this is something that we should address. And there's an easy way to do it. And it doesn't have to be something traumatic. It can be simple.
Well, and we're going to include the link to your website in the comments of this video. And you have some video on the toe walking and then just literally no toe walking. It's
Yeah.
just like a miracle,
Yeah.
seriously. So, is there anything else that you would like for our audience to take away from this interview about you and your business
Yeah.
today?
I think that one thing I always really want people to know, just so that they know my motivation, um, I created this product. I made it by hand for a year before even going the process of making it into something that I sold.
Mhm,
My main motivation is to help people. And
mhm,
I used a 3D printer in order to create my product so that it would be cheap and affordable, but yet good quality and
mhm,
um, just accessible to any family that needs it. So
mhm,
that's really my heart, is to help people. And I hope to be able to give this away to families. There's been a few that have reached out to me and said, we can't afford this.
mhm.
But just to make it available to anyone, no matter what, that's really my heart. And that was the motivation behind this, was to get it out there more so than to sell it, is just to get the name out and to help prevent other kids from going through traumatic interventions. And so I love to put that out there. That's really my heart, and I just hope that I'm able to help kids to just
Mhm.
get back to their full potential.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's so great. And I know there are different insurances and things, and I would hope that surely some insurances would cover these like any orthopedic type device, but I don't know. And then I know people have like HSAs, they have health savings accounts,
Yeah.
or various things that are not insurance per se, but it's insurance like. So maybe, I don't know, do you know, have you heard any news on that front?
Yeah, so a lot of times insurance will pay for medical devices that we call preventative. So they might be the first step in an intervention
Mhm,
before they have to go through the other interventions such as surgery. So
mhm.
that's actually something that is in the works, hopefully being
Mm,
able to get this covered by insurance. One,
mhm.
helping it get the name out there, getting
Yeah.
more access to the
Mhm.
product.
Yeah.
But also, like you mentioned, helping families to be able to afford it and
Mhm.
just hopefully not even needing the interventions afterwards. So,
Yeah, that is amazing. I mean, it would make sense, that this would be the choice
mhm.
over those invasive therapies. So even though I'm going to put it in the comments, would you share verbally, how our audience can reach you? Then I will put it in the comments as well.
Yeah, so we have our website, nonotiptoe.com. I loved the name because
I
it says exactly
do.
what it is and it's easy
Yeah.
to remember.
Hmm.
And then we are also on social media. So we are on Facebook and Instagram, and I would be happy to include those links as well.
Hmm.
We are just, getting started in the advertisement business. So hopefully, with more advertisements, we'll get more recognition, get the name out there, get the idea out there. And so you can
Hmm.
find us. Main place is No Tiptoe. Of course, there's an email and contact on the website as well that you can get in touch with.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jessie. Yes, I agree with you on that name. It's adorable. No, no tiptoe.
Thank you.
Perfect, perfect. So much fun. I mean, fun in a good way, in a fully wholesome way, in a amazing way. So I just I'm so proud of you, Jessie,
Thank you.
and so excited for you and where this is going. So, well, thanks so much for joining us today here on Hyperlocal in Huntsville.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Well, I've enjoyed it too. Thanks so much.